Chapter 4, Part 1 of Moonfleet. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Moonfleet by J. Mead Faulkner. Chapter 4, Part 1 of 2. In the Vault. Let us hob and nob with death. Tennyson. Though nothing of the vault except the roof was visible from where I lay, and so I could not see these visitors, yet I heard every word spoken, and soon made out one voice as being Master Ratsey's. This discovery gave me no surprise, but much solace, for I thought that if the worst happened and I was discovered, I should find one friend with whom I could plead for life.
"It is well the earth gave way,"
the sexton was saying,
"on a night when we were here to find it. I was in the graveyard myself after midday, and all was snug and tight then. 'Twould have been awkward enough to have a hole stand open through the day for any passer-by to light on."
There were 4 or 5 men in the vault already, and I could hear more coming down the passage, and guessed from their heavy footsteps that they were carrying burdens. There was a sound, too, of dumping kegs on the ground, with a swish of liquor inside them, and then the noise of casks being moved.
"I thought we should have a fall there ere long,"
Ratsey went on.
"what with this drought parching the ground, and the trampling at the edge when we moved the side stone to get in. But there is no mischief done beyond what can be easily made good. A gravestone or two and a few spades of earth will make all sound again. Leave that to me."
"Be careful what you do," rejoined another man's voice that I did not know, "lest someone see you digging, and scent us out."
"Make your mind easy," Ratsey said. "I have dug too often in this graveyard for any to wonder if they see me with a spade."
Then the conversation broke off, and there was little more talking, only a noise of men going backwards and forwards, and of putting down of the kegs, and the hollow gurgle of good liquor being poured from beakers into the casks. By and by fumes of brandy began to fill the air, and climb to where I lay, overcoming the mouldy smell of decayed wood and the dampness of the green walls. It may have been that these fumes mounted to my head, and gave me courage not my own, but so it was that I lost something of the stifling fear that had gripped me, and could listen with more ease to what was going forward. There was a pause in the carrying to and fro. They were talking again now, and someone said, "I was in Dorchester 3 days ago, and heard men say it will go hard with the poor chaps who had the brush with the Elector last summer. Judge Barentine comes on assize next week, and that old fox Maskew has driven down to Taunton to get at him before and coach him back, making out to him that the law's arm is weak in these parts against the contraband, and must be strengthened by some wholesome hangings." "They are a cruel pair," another put in,
"and we shall have new gibbets on Ridgetown for leading lights. Once I get even with Maskew, the other may go hang, aye, and they may hang me too."
"The devil send him to meet me one dark night on the down alone," said someone else, "and I will give him a pistol's mouth to look down, and spoil his face for him."
"No, thou wilt not,"
said a deep voice, and then I knew that Elzevir was there too.
"None shall lay hand on Maskew but I. So mark that, lad, that when his day of reckoning comes, 'tis I will reckon with him."
Then for a few minutes I did not pay much heed to what was said, being terribly straitened for room, and cramped with pain from lying so long in one place. The thick smoke from the pitch torches too came curling across the roof and down upon me, making me sick and giddy with its evil smell and taste. And though all was very dim, I could see my hands were black with oily smuts. At last I was able to wriggle myself over without making too much noise, and felt a great relief in changing sides, but gave such a start as made the coffin creak again at hearing my own name. "There is a boy of Trenchard's," said a voice that I thought was Parmeter's, who lived at the bottom of the village. "There is a boy of Trenchard's that I mistrust. He is forever wandering in the graveyard, and I have seen him a score of times sitting on this tomb and looking out to sea. This very night, when the wind fell at sundown, we were hung up with sails flapping 3 miles out, and waited for the dark to get the sweeps. I took my glass to scan the coastline, and lo, here on the tomb top sits Master Trenchard. I could not see his face, but knew him by his cut, and fear the boy sits there to play the spy, and then tells Maskew.
"You're right," said Greening of Ringstave, for I knew his slow drawl; "and many a time when I have sat in the wood, and watched the Manor to see Maskew safe at home before we ran a cargo, I have seen this boy too go round about the place with a hangdog look, scanning the house as if his life depended on it."
'Twas very true what Greening said, for of a summer evening I would take the path that led up Weatherbeech Hill, behind the Manor, both because 'twas a walk that had a good prospect in itself, and also a sweet charm for me, namely, the hope of seeing Grace Maskew. And there I often sat upon the stile that ends the path and opens on the down, and watched the old half ruined house below, and sometimes saw white frocked Gracie walking on the terrace in the evening sun, and sometimes in returning passed her window near enough to wave a greeting. And once, when she had the fever, and Dr. Hawkins came twice a day to see her, I had no heart for school, but sat on that stile the livelong day, looking at the gabled house where she was lying ill. And Mr. Glennie never rated me for playing truant, nor told Aunt Jane, guessing, as I thought afterwards, the cause, and having once been young himself. 'Twas but boy's love, yet serious for me, and on the day she lay near death I made so bold as to stop Dr. Hawkins on his horse and ask him how she did. And he bearing with me for the eagerness that he read in my face, bent down over his saddle and smiled, and said my playmate would come back to me again. So it was quite true that I watched the house, but not as a spy, and would not have borne tales to old Maskew for anything that could be offered. Then Ratsey spoke up for me and said,
"'Tis a false scent. The boy is well enough and simple, and has told me many a time he seeks the churchyard because there is a fine view to be had there of the sea, and 'tis the sea he loves. A month ago, when the high tide set, and this vault was so full of water that we could not get in, I came with Elzevir to make out if the floods were going down inside, or what eddy 'twas that set the casks tapping one against another. So as I lay on the ground with my ear glued close against the wall, who should march round the church but John Trenchard, Esquire, not treading delicately like King Agag, or spying, but just coming on a voyage of discovery for himself. For in the church on Sunday, when we heard the tapping in the vault below, my young gentleman was scared enough, but afterwards, being told by Parson Glennie, who should know better, that such noises were not made by ghosts but by the moons at sea in their coffins, he plucks up his heart and comes down on the Monday to see if they are still afloat. So there he caught me lying like a zany on the ground. You may guess I stood at attention soon enough, but told him I was looking at the founds to see if they wanted underpinnings from the flood. And so I set his mind at ease, for 'tis a simple child, and packed him off to get my dubbing hammer. And I think the boy will not be here so often now to frighten honest Parameter, for I have weaved him some pretty tales of Blackbeard, and he has a wholesome scare of meeting the Colonel. But after dark I pledged my life that neither he nor any other in the town would pass the churchyard wall, no, not for 1,000 pounds.
I heard him chuckling to himself, and the others laughed loudly too, when he was telling how he palmed me off. But he who laughs loudest, who laughs last, thought I, and should have chuckled too, were it not for making the coffin creak. And then, to my surprise, Elzevir spoke. "The lad is a brave lad. I would he were my son. He is David's age, and will make a good sailor later on." They were simple words, yet pleasing to me, for Elzevir spoke as if he meant them, and I had got to like him a little, in spite of all his grimness, and besides that, was sorry for his grief over his son. I was so moved by what he said, that for a moment I was for jumping up and calling out to him that I lay here and liked him well, but then thought better of it, and so kept still. The carrying was over, and I fancy they were all sitting on the ends of kegs or leaning up against the pile, but could not see, and was still much troubled with the torch smoke, though now and then I caught through it a whiff of tobacco, which showed that some were smoking. Then Greening, who had a singing voice for all his drawl, struck up with, "Says the captain to the crew, we have slipped the revenue." But Ratsey stopped him with a sharp, "No more of that. The words aren't to our taste tonight, but come as wry as if the parson called Old Hundred and I tuned up with Venny." I knew he meant the last verse with a hanging touch in it, But Greening was for going on with the song, until some others broke in too,